Okay, so today we're going to make chicken roulade cordon bleu muffaletta. Actually, we're going to make rolled up chicken thighs in 3 different ways. First thing we have to do, these are bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. So the first thing we have to do is remove the bones. Now I've covered my cutting board in plastic for several reasons. One, chicken has salmonella, which is bad to get all over the place, but also once I roll them up, they're going to get ended up rolled up in the plastic. First thing we have to do is remove the bones from the chicken thighs. Now it's not really that daunting. You take your chicken thigh, you turn it over, there's the bone there. You take your ridiculously sharp boning knife and you run it down the side of the bone. Once you've done that, you can mostly trim the meat back from the bone. Go around the bone like that. Get underneath it. Be careful, because if you do have a ridiculously sharp boning knife, this is a good way to just put big gashes in your hand. We'll try to avoid that. Now don't throw away these bones. We're going to roast them later and make a chicken stock. Try to get them as clean as possible, but again, we're going to make a chicken stock out of it, so don't have to be too obsessive. For the most part, once you get it started, it'll just kind of come out. Now there is one little piece of bone down here. This piece right here. Make sure you get that. And there's a little connective tissue right there that if you actually end up keeping it, ends up being a chewy mess. And that's really about it. Now we'll leave the skin on, and then later we're going to flatten out these chicken breasts or chicken thighs. Don't know why I keep having an issue with that. All right, now we just got to do the rest of them. Now I'm going to go beat my meat, and then I'm going to flatten out these chicken thighs. Hope you enjoyed that. I came up with the joke first, and then I made this entire recipe just so I could fit that in. Okay, preparing the bones for roasting. We're just going to season the bones a bit. Spread them out so they all get seasoned. We're going to add a pinch of baking soda. Going to add a couple of pinches of seasoning salt. a decent amount of allspice. And then some Worcestershire sauce. If I can get it open. That's about it. We're going to chuck it in the air fryer for about 12 minutes. And that should give us some decently roasted chicken bones to make a chicken stock out of. Although I have to admit, for the glaze on the dish I'm making now, I'm actually using a purchased stock because I already have it. Here's how the chicken bones turned out after roasting. Okay, so instead of a traditional ham, I am going to use a browned bit of sirloin. Now for that, again, we'll use our ridiculously sharp boning knife. We have to get all the gristle and stuff off of the sirloin because nobody wants to bite into that in the middle of a rolled up chicken thigh. So you can save the fat bits if you want and use them for like a stock or something later. I am going to just slice them into 1 ounce or 28 gram chunks, brown that off in a frying pan, and then I'll be using that where the traditional recipes would have called for ham. So that is about a 1 ounce or 28 gram piece. Now you're going to want these relatively thin. Okay, and then we will brown that off in a frying pan after we season it up. Now to season it up, we're going to put it in a bowl. I know that's pretty exciting stuff. We're going to add Montreal steak spice. So Montreal steak spice. We're going to add more than that, but we're going to mix this around. As you can tell, quite a bit of Montreal steak spice. And we're going to add a little bit of baking soda to help it brown. And then quite a bit of Worcestershire sauce to give it a tang when it browns off. All right. As a sauce for the various chicken thigh preparations, I'm going to do a mushroom. Well, originally it was going to be a demi-glace. I guess this is actually going to be closer to a gravy. In any case, it's a sauce that will go on all versions of it. Relatively simple sauce. I'm chopping up garlic, fresh garlic, onion and mushroom, a lot of mushroom, and the stock I'm going to use is actually a mushroom stock for making this. And like I said, it'll work on all of them. There's going to be quite a bit of it. I want all the ingredients sliced fairly fine. So we will keep chopping until things are fairly finely diced, which quite frankly will take a while. So, you know, go grab yourself a beer or something. Because we really want all the various bits to mostly disappear in the demi-glace, and there to be just small amounts. Okay, so we're going to do the filling for the Cordon Bleu. Traditionally, a Cordon Bleu just has ham and cheese in it, but when I used to make it in a steakhouse, we used to add peppers and sauteed peppers and onion, which isn't quite traditional. I'm going to go even less traditional in that I'm going to use serrano peppers, which are actually quite hot. We used to use bell peppers. And instead of ham, I'm going to use a piece of browned sirloin, mostly because I'm finding ham too salty and I'm finding bacon too fatty. So we will cut up the peppers and onions. And again, we'll make this a fairly fine chop. And then we'll saute this up and fill our chicken thighs with it. Typically, you don't really need that much in the way of peppers and or onions, because it's only really 3 chicken thighs, which aren't that big. So I'm going to have a bunch left over. So I might end up throwing the leftover bits in my demi-glace. Okay, and that's the onions and peppers that I will be sauteing up for the Cordon Bleu. Okay, so I'm going to use a stainless steel frying pan, and the main reason for that is that it's going to build up a font, drippings on the bottom, that will go into everything else that we're cooking. So I'm going to start off browning the meat, then move into the stuffing for the chicken Cordon Bleu inspired stuffing, and then do the mushroom sauce. So first thing we got to do is we got to bring our frying pan up to heat. We will be doing this on a medium-high heat because we want to get the brown. Okay, our frying pan's up to heat. So now we're going to give it a splash of olive oil. And we have to let the olive oil itself get up to heat. And then we'll start browning the meat. Okay, now that the meat's been browned, in the same pan we browned the meat in, on about a medium heat, we throw in some more olive oil, quite a bit more this time. Our pan's already up to temperature, and now we're just waiting for the oil to get up to temperature. And then we're going to do the onions and peppers. Okay. Again, we're going to do this on a medium heat. We want them to become, we do want to get the brown on them and we want to get the flavor on them, but we don't want to burn them and we don't want too much color on them. So that's really about it. And now we do want to drain the oil off, but we want the oil in for the next thing we're going to cook. Okay, so now we're going to start on the sauce. We have oil hot from our cooking of the Cordon Bleu inspired filling. And now we're putting in our mushrooms, onion, and garlic that we chopped fine. Now you could have done this in a food processor. I guess I just spent too long in kitchens. I find chopping vegetables a bit meditative. So we want to cook this on a low to medium-low heat. We don't really want to get a much of a brown on them. We really want this to more get the sweetness out of the onions. So we'll cover it and let it practically steam itself. And we'll check back on that every now and then and stir it. As you can tell, the steam from the water and the mushrooms and the onions has cleaned up just about everything that was on the bottom of the frying pan, and all that flavor has gone into our mixture. Now, although it doesn't really need much deglazing, there's also a flavor component to this. We're going to end up deglazing with a bit of red wine, a bit more red wine than that. Then we're going to add our mushroom stock, which we made the old-fashioned way. We went to Save On Foods and bought it. And then after this is going to lower the temperature quite a bit. So we're going to have to let that come back up to temperature. And then we're going to thicken it with a wine and cornstarch slurry. Also, it's at this point I'm going to season it. I'm going to add some black pepper, because I'm a big fan of black pepper. And 2 pinches of seasoning salt. We don't want to go nuts on the salt, because the salt content will actually rise as this cooks down. Okay, that's been cooking down for a while, and I don't really think I need to thicken it very much. I am going to thicken it a little bit, but for the most part, it's kind of where I want it to be, so I don't want to add too much cornstarch to this, probably about that much, I guess. And we'll see how that thickens up. And I really don't want it any thicker than that. Okay, that's it. Our mushroom sauce is complete. Now to assemble the rest. Okay, so now it's all about assembling it. We're going to start with the roulade inspired chicken thighs. So we're going to start with some Dijon mustard. Quite a bit of Dijon mustard, actually. And then we're going to spread that out evenly. Throwing silverware, optional, but you know, relieves a little frustration. So once we get a decent coating of Dijon mustard, now we add just a touch of sliced onion. I was going to add some seasoning salt, but I figured with the mustard that would become superfluous. I'm going to add 2 slices of zesty garlic dill pickle, but you can use whatever pickle you like. Since I've taken a lot of liberties with this recipe, I didn't feel I had to remain too traditional, although traditional would be a dill pickle. And now, let me have a think. Ah, yes, I forgot my bacon substitute. I should put a smaller one in there, and that's a smaller thigh. So this is the meat we browned earlier. Okay, now you notice I put plastic underneath all of them. Some of that was definitely so I don't get contamination on the area, although I will be scrubbing it down when I'm done anyway. But also, once I roll these up, I'm going to wrap them in the plastic and put them in the fridge because these flavors need time to meet up with each other. So, I mean, it is something I recommend you make at least 2 hours before you want to serve it. That one rolled up fairly well. And then I unrolled it because, you know, why make your life easy? And there we have it, one of the beef roulade inspired chicken thigh recipes. Well, now we're going to try to roll that one. I probably shouldn't have gone with the biggest chicken thigh first. It probably gave me more confidence than I should have, but the second one rolled up fairly well as well. And if you're wondering why I'm doing these in threes, it's because I'm doing the chicken thighs 3 different ways, and I had 9 breasts. So it's really just all about the math. And there we go. And now I'm remembering that I wanted to put lemon pepper on them before I wrap them. But I didn't do it for the first 2, so I guess I won't do it with this one. All right, so that is the roulade inspired chicken thighs. And now we're going to do the Cordon Bleu inspired chicken thigh. One thing I'm going to be mentioning is I'm not going to be breading this. I'm not a big fan of breading in general. And I kind of like the way the chicken skin, which by the way is also structural, because it is holding the flattened chicken breast together, browns up better than the way I like the way breading browns up. One advantage of the quick scrub between the last dish and this dish is the plastic sticks to the counter better. Although, of course, as soon as I say that, that becomes more of a curse than a blessing. Anyway, so now we're going to do the Cordon Bleu inspired chicken thighs. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put on some seasoning salt. I'm going to be using classic seasoning salt from Silk Road in Calgary. They're not paying me to do that, I just like it. Shout out to Mitchell for getting this for me. Again, go light on the salt. Especially if you don't live in Calgary, because Silk Road only exists in Calgary. Then we're going to do a bit of fresh tarragon. And just a touch of fresh thyme. You know what they say about life, there's never enough time. I don't think that's true with chicken thigh recipes though. Okay, so that basically takes care of our seasoning. Now here's the onions and peppers that we did up earlier. Now the browned beef, which of course, as I've explained before, is my ham substitute. That's a big one, I think I need a smaller one. Okay, and now for the cheese. Now I'm going to use partly skimmed mozzarella cheese because it's low fat and it's the lowest fat cheese, and I know I've said this before, it's the lowest fat cheese that still melts, and I want this cheese to melt. Alright, and that's basically it. And now we assemble them, and hopefully they go together as good as the roulade ones. And already that's a no. Alright, that wasn't terrible. I would like to have folded the ends in, but my pieces of beef are too large. Not the first time I've been told my meat is too big. And again, same thing. Fridge for a couple hours. These are probably going to go in overnight for me, and I'll have a meal tomorrow with it, and I'll video the whole thing. And there we have it. 3 chicken cordon bleu inspired chicken thighs. Now the muffaletta. Okay, the next way we're going to do chicken thighs is inspired by a muffaletta sandwich. First had a muffaletta sandwich in Orlando at a place called Donatello's. It was a good Italian deli. Anyway, muffaletta is really an olive salad with giardiniera and cheese and then some prepared meats like provolone, capricoli, etc. I'm going to make the filling. Now, the nice thing about this filling is you don't have to do a lot of cooking. It's really just grab yourself some olives and some giardiniera and chop it up. Before I go any further, I should probably add the giardiniera. Giardiniera is really just pickled vegetable medley. You can pick it up, again, most Italian delis will have something like it. Some Greek delis might have something similar. It's got pickles and cauliflower and carrots and stuff in it. That should be more than enough filling for 3 chicken breasts. But again, you can put it on anything. And now you just chop it up, and then we'll be ready to put it in chicken thighs. One thing I should mention is you want this chopped fairly fine. You don't really want big chunks. I really can't say why, actually, except that's the way the sandwich is. And it seems to make sense when you put it all together. Other than that, it will have the same tenderloin piece that the other chicken thighs in this series have had, as well as some fresh herbs and cheese. So I have chopped up way too much of the stuff, but that's about the consistency you're looking for. Okay, now for the Muffaletta inspired chicken thighs. I think we want them to go that direction. We'll roll up the best. So again, I'm going to be using the classic seasoning salt from Silk Road in Calgary, which I can't get here. Again, shout out to Mitchell. Thank you very much for getting it for me. Also, in deference to its, I guess, Italian heritage, I'm going to be using a bit of fresh oregano. And a bit of thyme. I find the thyme lasts quite well in the fridge, even though they say time waits for no man. Maybe that's because they didn't have fridges. Make sure you don't get any of the stems in there. They're kind of tough. So oregano and thyme, probably too much. My ham stand-in, the sirloin we browned earlier. The Muffaletta filling, which again is just chopped olives and chopped giardiniera. And of course, the cheese, part skimmed mozzarella, and then the will it roll up? Always an interesting question. So far I've been pretty lucky, and it looks like my luck has run out. This one doesn't want to roll up. So when I cook that one, it's going to be a ruddy mess. Ooh, this one is really a mess. And there we have it, 3 Muffaletta inspired chicken thighs. With the others, these will go into the fridge so the flavors meet up. Also, while they're in the fridge, the shapes will firm up a bit so they're a bit easier to cook. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is roast the tomatillos. First thing to do is take off this papery skin. This is a cheap, I think it was $3 strawberry core that I bought at a local restaurant supply place. That's perfect for this type of thing and for coring strawberries, pretty much anything like that. So once we got the papers off, I just like to core these. I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to come out roasted. I've only ever eaten them raw. Okay, once you've dug the cores out, I am just going to cut them in 1/8. Then I'm going to preheat my air fryer, and I'm going to put them in for let's say 10 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a little one, it can go in quarters. Now, before I do that, I'm going to give them a little bit of seasoning. Just a spritz of olive oil. Pinch of seasoning salt. And some black pepper. And then I'm going to throw them in the air fryer. Okay, so we are going to go with the Roulade and the Cordon Bleu chicken breasts. We are going to splash them with olive oil, then some lemon pepper, and some fresh tarragon. And these will go into the air fryer for about the same time as the asparagus, I think. Probably about 8 minutes. And the asparagus, cut off the hard, nasty bottoms. Again, a quick spray with olive oil. Normally I would end up doing that in a bowl, but I gotta wash this cutting board anyway. I actually think these are going to be a bit long for my baskets. Well, they'll probably just fit. Anyway, much the same as tomatillos, some seasoning salt, some black pepper, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to keep the asparagus. Now, the one thing I am going to do at the end for the asparagus is I have some dill lemon compound butter that I'm going to melt and pour on the asparagus at the end. Okay, the chicken thighs and the asparagus is roasting away. I'm going to do a couple of cherry tomatoes. Okay, more than a couple. A few cherry tomatoes as a garnish. And then, just for a little bit of contrast, I'm going to sprinkle a bit of dried Italian spice mix on them. And those will go on the plate when the other stuff comes out. The other thing I'm going to end up doing is putting some of my compound butter into the little metal container so I can melt it down for the asparagus. About that much should be fine. And then I'll show you this when it's all plated up. And now to plate this. So there are the roasted tomatillos. We put on our cherry tomatoes. And our chicken breast and our roasted asparagus. I added a toothpick so they wouldn't fall apart, which only looked like it was partially successful. Okay, and then we take our compound butter, we add it to the asparagus, and we take our really hot mushroom sauce, and we add it to the plate, and there we go. The first of the rolled chicken thigh dishes. Okay, the chicken thigh roulade and the chicken thigh cordon bleu turned out excellent. The mushroom sauce had the right amount of mushroom flavor to it. The asparagus turned out perfect. The compound butter added just the right extra flavor. The tomatillos and the tomatoes added a good acid bite that cut through the richness of the chicken thighs. Overall, that was a really good meal. I highly recommend it. Okay, tonight we are going to make the Muffaletta inspired rolled up chicken thighs. We're going to do a sauteed rapini and a roasted Chinese cauliflower. Okay, first we're going to prep the stuff that's going into the air fryer. I was actually thinking of pan frying the chicken thighs, but the last batch came out so good air fried, I'm going to stick with that. Also, I'm going to add toothpicks to them to keep them together because that also worked out well last time. So this is relatively simple. Just figure out where they went together. and stick a toothpick through it. This one's a little harder than I was anticipating. And I think I'll do 3 of them tonight, because I do kind of want to see how these things turn out when they're cold. So one of them I'll keep till tomorrow. Maybe I got to start buying sharper toothpicks. Anyway, once you have the toothpicks in so they don't unravel, then it's just a matter of spraying them down with some olive oil. Seasoning them with a bit of lemon pepper. And a bit of coarse pepper. That's about it. They're ready to hit the air fryer. So the more complicated part of this is actually going to be the cauliflower. So for Chinese cauliflower, it's pretty much like regular cauliflower, although I think it has a bit of a sweeter flavor. And I'm not going to use all of this. I do like to leave the stalks fairly long on this. And I do like to cut them up more like broccoli florets than slices like I like to do with cauliflower. Anyway, that should be enough. We'll throw that in there. All right, seasoning relatively simple. Again, quick spray with olive oil, as seems to be everything in the air fryer. Some smoked paprika. A pinch of seasoning salt. And coarse black pepper. The other thing I'm going to add to this, there's not really much due to this, is I'm just going to throw in some cherry tomatoes. And that stuff's all ready for the air fryer. All in all, I guess it should take 10 minutes, 12 minutes in the air fryer. Anyway, let's get started on the rapini. Okay, so for the rapini, we're going to add onion, and these we're going to have about a medium slice on them, I guess, or a medium dice. Not too big, but we do want the onion bite when we actually bite into the dish. We're going to add tomatillo, unclear how to pronounce that. I just think these add a nice citrusy flavor. We're going to add serrano peppers. And we're going to add Anaheim peppers. And this is turning out to be quite a bit of vegetable. Then we're going to add mushrooms. And that gives us a nice flavor base. And then for the rapini itself, it has a bit of a bitter flavor, but not much of one. Most of this will come down. And then all I'm really going to do is these leaves come down quite a bit. I'm going to chop the stalk so that it's all plate sized. And that's about it. Really, we just throw this in the frying pan and saute everything off. Spices I'm going to add is first we're going to add fresh oregano. But we're not going to add that till later. And then we're going to add fresh thyme. Now the oregano's soft enough that you can just chop up the stalks and it's fine, but the thyme is not. You have to take the thyme off the stalk, or take the time to take the time, I guess. Then, like I said, we just throw all this in a frying pan, and that's about it. So we've preheated our air fryer, and since I'm going to have cheese melting in there, I've put in the silicone bottom instead of the browning rack. And now we put our cauliflower and our tomatoes in there, and we'll give that about 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes before we look at it and decide if we're going to put our chicken in there yet. So 8 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, now we're going to cook the rapini. I'm going to use my carbon steel frying pan. I'm going to get it up to heat. Then I'm going to throw the ingredients in. Then I'm going to put a lid on it, let it kind of steam down a bit. And then as it shrinks down, I will take the lid off so it browns up nicely. Make sure you get this covered. I'm doing this on a medium-high heat. And as soon as the frying pan comes up to temperature, I'll throw in the ingredients. Okay, the frying pan is up to temperature. Let's put our ingredients in. Okay, so we're going to have to stir that quite a bit, but for now, we're going to let that steam down a bit. Okay, after 8 minutes, the cauliflower looks like that. It's got quite a good roast on it. Now we're going to add the chicken. So now we're adding the chicken, and that's going to go in for 10 minutes to start with. So as you can see, after about 5 minutes of cooking, the volume has really come down. A lot of the liquid has gone off, and now we're going to start working on caramelization. At this point is when I add my seasoning. I didn't add it before that because you end up getting too much seasoning in, and then when the moisture comes out, I'm going to start with a pinch of seasoning salt. When the moisture comes out, you end up with something that's too salty. I am also going to add, as sort of a unifying feature, coarse black pepper, and at this point I'm also going to add the thyme and the oregano. We'll cook this up for another few minutes, and then I'm just going to put a lid on it and keep it warm while the other stuff finishes.
This is the 3 Muffaletta chicken breasts with the roasted Chinese cauliflower and the rapini. These came out wonderful. The chicken skin is a much better idea than breading, although I have to admit I preferred the Cordon Bleu and the Roulade to the Muffaletta. It came out a bit too briny, but it was still very good. The Chinese cauliflower comes out fantastic in the air fryer, and the rapini came out wonderful. Great texture, good flavor. Overall, I would highly recommend it. Please give it a try. Let me know what you think.